This is the podcast of INCACT, the European Network on Cultural Management and Policy. In this series, we interview extraordinary professionals from the cultural management and policy community. Join us to hear their stories, the secrets of their success, and their advice for creating innovation by inspiring new policies and practices in the cultural, education, and research sector.
Today's episode will focus on cultural relations on time of crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has deeply impacted economies, societies, and political systems worldwide. Culture as a sector and as a practice in international relations has not been exempted either. Indeed, the social, political, and economic characteristics of the pandemic have had a deep implication for culture and its role in international relations. Clear evidence on the impact of COVID-19 on culture and creative sector and on their capacity and willingness to conduct international relations is clearly provided in many reports published in Europe and beyond. In 2022, with the start of the war in Ukraine, new times of crisis for cultural relations started. In order to understand better how cultural networks can improve international cultural relations in challenging times, we have met with our member, Professor Carla Figueira from the University Goldsmiths of London. Good morning, Carla, and welcome to this episode of the INCACT podcast series.
Hello, it is a pleasure to participate in the INCACT podcast series. My name is Carla Figueira, and I'm an academic working on international cultural relations at Goldsmiths, University of London in the United Kingdom. I'm originally from Lisbon, Portugal, where I was an arts manager, and I'm still very interested in all cultural and linguistic matters related to the Portuguese-speaking world.
Could you please tell us more about your master program and what is the profile of the students following your programs?
At Goldsmiths, my department is the Institute for Creative and Cultural Entrepreneurship, and there I convene two MA programs. The MA in Cultural Policy Relations and Diplomacy, and the MA in Tourism and Cultural Policy. I also supervise PhD students and host visiting scholars in my area of research, International Cultural Relations, which studies the relations between individuals, communities, and countries through culture, understood broadly. My students come from all over the world, and they have a wide range of previous educational experiences, but all have interest in international relations, culture, and the creative and cultural sectors and heritage industries. But they focus on different sectors. Those studying diplomacy on the cultural relations sector, and those studying tourism on the cultural tourism sector. I thoroughly enjoy teaching because I enjoy sharing what I know with the students, but mostly because I love to host discussions with them and learn from their knowledge and experiences.
Carla, could you please tell us what means the word culture external relations and why it is relevant nowadays?
In my understanding, that is another expression that inhabits the wider conceptual cloud covered by international cultural relations. The use of the expression culture in external relations is often associated with the efforts of the European Union in mainstreaming culture in its policy and practice, complementing and adding value to the activity of its member states, particularly in what concerns the relations with third countries, and therefore we talk about external relations. This topic remains relevant as it is part of the way we all live, as individuals part of communities and citizens of countries, and as participating in other social organizations. Humanity is defined by relationships and interactions. And through history, we have developed different systems to organize our relations. It is important to understand those systems and check how they are working and strive to improve them.
Why did you get interested in researching about this topic?
I have always been interested in this topic because I've always been interested in knowing about how different communities develop various ways of living and wanting to know more to satisfy my curiosity. And I am still curious. There's still a lot to learn.
Based on your experience, what are the most pressing challenges you identified in current international cultural relations?
Well, that is a rather difficult question. International relations emerged as an autonomous discipline in the wake of the First World War to focus on examining war and finding the conditions for peace through diplomacy. We are still trying to find solutions to avoid war and maintain peace, and culture is an intrinsic part of that through the development of various activities that can enable dialogue, understanding, and trust. But war remains a major challenge for international cultural relations, and we only have to think about what is currently happening in the Ukraine. Another challenge I would like to highlight regards what we often designate by social justice. Protecting human rights, enabling all human beings to live dignified and healthy lives in a stable, equitable, and secure world is also a task for international cultural relations. Promoting values such as freedom of expression, respect for diversity, solidarity, and fairness should underpin projects and activities, as well as being at the core of all intervening organizations.
In your view, how can the arts and the cultural and creative sector contribute to overcome these challenges?
The arts, heritage, and the cultural and creative sectors have important roles in contributing to solutions to all these challenges. In a first instance, by looking inward and each organization and professional thinking about what they act and what they can do to contribute to a solution that is necessarily going to be constituted by a series of small interventions. Secondly, by trying to affect change in others through their interactions and activities. Here it is fundamental that there is a common ground, joint objectives to achieve. And we already have some of these captured in the Sustainable Development Goals set within the UN framework. The sector should use these as an orientation. The sector, its organizations, and professionals need to be aware of the impact that they can have. This needs to go beyond metrics related to output, for example, how many people have attended a particular event, to encompass indicators of transformational change. Here, storytelling is incredibly powerful in demonstrating what has been achieved and inspiring others. Lessons can be learned, knowledge can be shared, both from successes and failures. As important as boasting about what has worked is learning about what has not worked. In both cases, taking the time to reflect on practice and retrace the thinking and theory behind it are important steps in capturing important learnings that can help us and others to be better in doing what we do and working together.
How do you think cultural networks can improve international cultural relations in challenging times?
Cultural networks such as NCAT have an important role in enabling this joint work in cultural policy and practice and international cultural relations. They bring together a wide range of professionals from all over the world that share a common interest in dedicating themselves to cultural work and applying it in different spheres of our lives. With further commitment within these networks, communities of practice can be fostered to enable us to better share our knowledge, support each other, and intentionally create new knowledge and coordinate action in our field of practice. This development of communities of practice in international cultural relations is one of the topics I'm mostly interested in. In addition, I continue to devote attention to the intersection of cultural relations and climate action, which is, in my view, another important topic. I hope that the work I can produce in both areas, both individually but also working with other colleagues and organizations, continues to contribute to a diverse and productive field of applied research.
To conclude this nice conversation with you, Carla, could you please unveil us what is the topic of your most recent research?
In terms of a recent challenge, we had and are still dealing with COVID-19. The pandemic affected one of the fundamental ways in which international cultural relations is performed, which is through in-person contact and exchanges. Our current technological capabilities have afforded us the use of the digital and of the face-to-face contact. But all this is recent, and there is still a lot of research to be done regarding digital engagement. I am sure that technological developments will continue playing an important role in cultural relations and all human interactions. However, there is a much broader challenge related to the conditions for life and survival of humanity on planet Earth. How humans relate to the rest of the ecosystem is not just a scientific, economic, political problem, it is also a cultural problem. Culturally, most of humanity is used to thinking, feeling, and acting in relation to nature in a distant and exploitative way. Here, international cultural relations also have a role to play by raising awareness, seeking to change attitudes and behaviors, influencing policy. Thank you again for this opportunity to participate with this short contribution to the NCAT podcast series.
You have been listening to the podcast of INCACT, the European Network on Cultural Management and Policy. To learn more about us, our activities, and how to become a member, visit incact.org.